This demonstration will explain how to set up Microsoft Dynamics AX financial dimensions. The dimensions are set up in the Basic module of Microsoft Dynamics AX. The Dimension field is where we identify the dimension that we are creating. The drop box will show the standard Microsoft Dynamics AX dimensions: Department, Cost Center, and Purpose, or different dimension names if they are changed by your company. The drop box will also show any additional dimensions that your company has added. The dimension can be selected from the drop box or by typing the first letters of the dimension name. For example, typing the letter C will select the Cost Center dimension. The number field is the identifier for the dimension. This alphanumeric field will be used during data entry. Dimensions are often manually selected in Accounts Payable and in General Ledger. They will normally default automatically from vendors, customers, and items when using purchase or sales orders. Numbers are generally easier to enter, but alpha codes are usually easier to remember. You may want to consult with your accounting staff on their preference in entering values. The description field is used in inquiries, lookups, and reports. You can also link an employee to a dimension. The employee must be set up in the Basic module first before being used here. An employee can be created on the fly by right-clicking and selecting Go to the Main Table form. The Group field is used for consolidated financial statements. Let's say you have 3 companies. When you consolidate the companies, you may require less detail than what exists in each company. The Group field can be used instead of the dimension. For example, the companies may have departments broken out into detail: human resources, accounting, payroll, etc. When the consolidation is performed, all of these dimensions can be rolled up into just one, called Administration. We would enter Admin in the Group field for all dimensions that will be combined in the consolidation company. The General tab contains all the fields available in the Overview tab. Once the dimensions are created, they can be used in Microsoft Dynamics AX. However, to assist with data entry and to control postings, we can set up validations and default values for the dimensions in each Microsoft Dynamics AX module. Validation rules and default dimensions can be established from the Chart of Accounts in the General Ledger module. They are used to indicate the relationship between each account and each dimension. Dimensions are typically associated with the profit and loss accounts. Therefore, the validations are usually not required for any of the balance sheet accounts. Select the Dimension tab for each account that requires a validation rule or default value. If a value is entered next to any of the dimensions, it will default during data entry. The dimensions are independent of each other. Therefore, the validation rules may be different for each dimension on any given account. The validation options for each dimension are Optional, To be filled in, Table, List, Fixed, and Default. Optional indicates that the dimension may be entered, but it is not required or validated. To be filled in indicates that the dimension is required and it must be entered or the user will not be able to post the transaction. Table is used when there is only one valid dimension option accepted. The dimension value is entered to the right of the related dimension. The dimension will default automatically into the transactions. If the value is changed during data entry, an error will occur when posting, and the user must change the dimension back to the valid dimension in order to post the transaction. List is used when there are several valid dimensions for the account. Click on the Validation List button to enter all valid dimensions for this account. The user will only be able to enter dimensions that are included in the list. Fixed is similar to Table. The dimension listed on the account must be used. The difference is that during data entry, if the user changes the dimension for the transaction, he will not receive an error when posting. Instead, Microsoft Dynamics AX will change the dimension to the fixed dimension and then post. Default will use the value listed on the account, but the value can be changed during data entry. Now that we have reviewed the validation options, here are some examples of how they can be used. If the marketing expense account should only be used by the marketing department, then the Validate Department field should be set to Table or Fixed. If office supplies account should only be used by the admin or sales department, then the Validate Department field should be set to List. The list of valid departments can then be selected by using the Validation List button. If travel expenses must have a department and cost center, then the Validate Department and Validate Cost Center fields should both be set to be filled in. Default dimensions can be entered for each customer. They are identified in the Dimension tab of the customer's form. Dimensions will default during data entry but can be changed. Creating default dimensions will expedite the data entry process and maintain consistency of postings. Default dimensions can also be entered for each vendor. They are identified in the Dimension tab of the vendor's form. Dimensions will default when entering accounts payable invoices or purchase orders. Default dimensions can also be entered for each item. The financial dimensions will default into transactions buying, selling, or producing the inventory item. Inventory items also have inventory dimensions. These are completely independent of the financial dimensions. Default dimensions can be identified throughout Microsoft Dynamics AX. They can be identified on fixed assets, budgets, work centers, employees, etc. Creating default values where applicable will expedite data entry and ensure accuracy. Creating validation rules in the General Ledger Chart of Accounts will ensure that the correct dimensions are posted to each account.